Okay, so today's story is going to come from a magazine I have because we're still doing nonfiction. And I found this nonfiction book called One Giant Leap. And so I'm just going to kind of show you one page at a time. And I really want us focusing on the text structure of this story. Like, how does he organize this particular story? And then I want you to take note to the text features, like the photographs and the captions and the headings and the bold print and all of those things. And I want you to think to yourself as we're reading it, like, why did he put that there? Not like, oh, that's a timeline, I know that, or that's bold print and I know that. That's what we do in elementary. Like, I really want you to think about, like, why is that there? How does that help me understand the story better? So here we go. One Giant Leap. And it says, astronaut Edwin Buzz Aldrin stands near the American flag on the moon. So this caption lets me know what he was doing on the moon. So I might have a question like, the caption with the picture on the cover helps me understand what? That he was on the moon would be what I would think the answer would be. All right, here we go. On July 20th, 1969, Bill Barry begged his parents to let him stay up late. One of the biggest events in history was about to happen. The 11-year-old from Massachusetts didn't want to miss it. I was glued to the floor in front of our black and white TV, Barry recalls. What do we call it when it says he was glued to the floor? Do you think he was literally glued to the floor? No. So that's a type of figurative language, and that is an idiom, because only an idiot would really think he was glued to the floor. At 10:56 p.m., Barry watched Neil Armstrong become the first person to set foot on the moon. More than 500 million people around the world also tuned in. 20 minutes later, they saw astronaut Edwin Buzz Aldrin join Armstrong. For the first time, humans had visited a place beyond Earth. As he stepped onto the lunar surface, Armstrong said these now famous words, "That's one step for a man and one giant leap for mankind." Now, why do you think they put the bold print in lunar? Yeah, it's a vocabulary word. So I need to stop and think to myself, what do I think lunar, onto the lunar surface? Well, what do I know already is going on? They're not on the surface of the Earth, right? I know they're on the surface of the moon because that's what this story is about. So maybe if I didn't know what lunar meant, I would know it's a surface, and a surface is a place, like a ground. A new mission. So I can tell from this subheading right here that this next section is going to be about a new mission that they go on. The moon landing fulfilled an ambitious goal set by President John F. Kennedy in 1961. He called for the U.S. to send astronauts to the moon by the end of the decade. The Apollo program was created to accomplish that goal. But the program had a tragic start. In 1967, the first Apollo spacecraft caught fire. Sadly, all 3 astronauts on board were killed. Still, NASA, the U.S. Space Agency, pressed on. Each mission that followed brought the U.S. closer to the moon. Apollo 11 would be the first attempt at landing. Danger ahead. So we know that this section is probably going to talk about something that was not going to go good. On July 16, 1969, a rocket carrying Armstrong, Aldrin, and crewmate Michael Collins blasted off from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. 3 days later, and more than 200,000 miles from home, they were orbiting the moon. Armstrong and Aldrin climbed into a section of the spacecraft called the Eagle. Now, why do you think they italicized the Eagle right there? They wanted to bring attention that it was the title of something. It was the name of something. It separated from the main ship and headed towards the moon's surface. But the landing almost ended in disaster. When the Eagle was about 2,000 feet from the surface, Armstrong noticed a problem. They were headed for a giant crater surrounded by boulders. With only seconds to spare, Armstrong took the controls and changed the ship's path. He landed the spacecraft safely only moments before it ran out of fuel. "The Eagle has landed," he told NASA's Mission Control. What can we infer about him and Armstrong, Aldrin, and Michael Collins through what happened. Armstrong, what could we infer or conclude about him from this section of the story? I think that we can conclude that he's a fast thinker, because he landed something right before it was going to mess up. So he thought fast and was able to fix it. Moonwalking. So I think on this section, they're probably going to be talking about moonwalking. The world watched as Aldrin and Armstrong walked across the moon. They planted an American flag in the powdery soil, and they also did experiments and collected dirt and rocks for scientists on Earth. After just over 2 hours, they climbed back into the Eagle. They traveled back to the main ship and rejoined Collins. On July 24th, their space capsule safely splashed down in the Pacific Ocean. Beyond the moon. Apollo 11 marked a new era in space exploration. Right now, 6 astronauts live and work on the International Space Station wheeled robots called rovers. And there might have been a question like, what is a rover? Or what keywords let you know what a rover is? And right before it used the word robot. So I know that a rover would be a type of robot. NASA hopes to send astronauts there in the 2030s. The moon landing inspired a new generation to look to the stars. Bill Barry went on to become NASA's chief historian. In his job, he shares stories about the July day 50 years ago when the impossible became possible. And I want you to notice some more of these text features. So right here, they gave us like a little timeline or some pictures about what things would have looked like during that time to help me understand maybe how long ago it was and what that would have looked like. Down here, they give me some pictures of the guys so I can understand what an astronaut looks like and who each person is. So there's some really good text features there that help me understand this story better. So let's talk about the text structure. Do we think that he wrote this to compare and contrast? Did they compare America landing on the moon, comparing it to Russia? No, so it's not comparing. He did not organize it to compare and contrast anything. Did he write this story as a cause and effect, like the causes of the space shuttle landing on the moon, and tell us the effects of that? No, I don't think that it was a cause and effect story. Do you think that it could be a problem solution story? Do you think that this story was written as there was a problem and this is how they solved the problem? That one could be iffy depending on how they word it in the question. Like the problem was they needed to get to the moon, or they were given the job to land on the moon, and the solution was they created these spacecrafts and all these things. Or do we think it's more of a timeline story, like a chronological order story? Because when I look at this story, I see lots of dates of when things were happening in the order that it happened. And so that lets me know that he wrote this story to tell us of how these men landed on the moon and how they walked on the moon and how they discovered it, and kind of the timeline of how all of that happened. And the key thing to look in there is there's lots of dates and times and telling us the order that it happened.